The Toyota RAV4, the Honda CR-V, and heaven help us, the Nissan Rogue are the best-selling vehicles in each of their respective brands. Now, by that logic, it would stand to reason that best-selling vehicle does not equal fun-to-drive vehicle. Now, you guys know me at this point. You know Kumo and you know the World Car Awards organization. Our jobs are to find outliers, and I will let you guess what the best-selling Porsche is. Now, we have driven many of these before, and we have proven they are incredibly fun to drive. However, Zuffenhausen called Kumo and said, hey man, we got one with more power. Do you want to drive it? And who is he to turn down an opportunity like that? So why don't you and I drive the best-selling Porsche again? Okay, here we go. Another Porsche Turbo, this time with 2 extra doors. Now remember back to when we flew over to Spain, we drove the Macan, the basic one. Well, this one has almost 180 more horsepower and only adds 145 extra pounds. So with that, here we go. Oh, that is a significant difference. But let's try that again. That was in normal. Let's go down to Sport Plus. Just go over Sport, hit it again. Oh, it holds the gear longer. The transmission reprograms in Sport Plus mode, and it does make a rather significant difference, especially when you get back on it here. Now, if you are a Macan fanboy or fangirl and really paying attention, you are well aware that the Macan GTS has the exact same engine, just somewhat detuned. So how do you differentiate a Macan GTS from a Macan Turbo? Well, there are some visual cues. On the outside, some of the stuff that's normally black is body color, like those lower body cladding thing you see on Macans. Then the back, you know, on the Flyline they have that spoiler, it's revised here. Then obviously the front, it looks different. But to me, the thing that really stands out is the lighting. And this is not so much just a change for the sake of let's make the front end look different, but you and I have noticed a design trend over the past couple of years where car designers, and not just Porsche, everybody, have been putting these really unique light signatures in their cars. Like for example, when you see an Escalade coming or going, you can't confuse it with anything else. And I would argue this is what's happening here, because they've put these unique lights, and if you are indeed that Macan fanboy or fangirl, this will scream, I'm a turbo. Okay, so let's go into the stiffest setting and get on it a bit more aggressively as we've lovely turns. And this is where the Macan shines, really not a significant change from the previous version we drove. I would argue it's maybe just a wee bit sharper because they've changed the air ride suspension, which this car is fit with, as well as the placement of some of those hydraulics. So let's get in here a bit more aggressive on this turn. It really does a wonderful job of maintaining roll from side to side. And the beauty of this thing, and I would argue probably the reason why it sells so well, is it drives like a car. I mean, you've heard that before about crossovers, but this, it's not bullshit. Remember back to the fall of 2017, you and I flew to my homeland, Greece, to drive the then new 2019 Porsche Cayenne Turbo. Yes, they referred to it as a 2019 way back then. And amongst the many things we learned about, we were introduced to something called PSCB, not to be confused with PCCB, which is about a $10,000 difference. And what that means is Porsche Surface Coated Brakes. Well, that by name, rank, and serial number cascades its way down to the Macan Turbo. And here it's 390 millimeter diameter rotors in the front, 356 diameter rotors in the back, 6 piston calipers in the front, and 1 piston calipers in the back. And note these are white to reflect the PSCB differentiation. Now, the real big difference here is the coating on the rotors. It's a tungsten carbide coating, and the biggest difference that I've noticed, being that I'm somewhat OCD, is it reduces the brake dust by, according to Porsche, 90%. And I've been driving this about 4 days, and there is literally almost nothing on those wheels. I mean, almost nothing. But you speak to Porsche and they'll tell you that it improves the responsiveness and increases the friction values. Being these are brakes, you should have some friction value. And as far as I can see, there's really only one way to test that. So let's keep in mind, this is a bit lighter than the last time we tried this trick in Greece with a Cayenne turbo. So with that, here we go. Accelerate and brake. Oh, there is a difference. Oh, yes. Now, Porsche will have you believe that there's a difference because of the actual brake pedal itself. It's made from different construction. I don't think that's the case. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game and mine with today's, I would argue, one of the most fun to drive yet practical vehicles currently on offer today on planet Earth. And that is the 2020 Porsche Macan Turbo for a suggested retail price of built-in $83,600. To that, we add a stunning shade of sapphire blue metallic for a rather reasonable $700. And then there is a leather package in black. Now, I'm all for the leather package, but why would you ruin such a beautiful color on the outside with no creativity with a black interior? The only good news here, it's free. Then there is the Porsche logo satin black and model designation in high gloss black, something we saw in the 992 Turbo, but this is not part of Porsche exclusive manufacture for $510. Then the one option that makes this one of the most fun yet practical vehicles to drive, something that is highly important here, the adaptive air suspension including PASM for $1,390. Something that kind of partners with that, also equally important, the Porsche Torque Vectoring Plus, $1,500. Then there's the heated multifunction GT Sport steering wheel. Do not understand why that's optional on an $83,000 car, $330. Then we add something that falls under the heading of beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You see, these are fitted with 20-inch turbo design wheels as standard. I prefer those to these 21-inch RS Spider design wheels. But hey man, your money, you figure it out. $1,660. Then we move on to a couple of head-scratching options. First is the auto dimming mirrors, $420. Lane change assist, $700. I'd like to point out, both of those are standard on most fancy Hyundai Sonatas. The Sport Chrono package, something that works in conjunction with all the other stuff we talked about, that's very important, $1,360. A smoking package. Now, I am one that partakes in a cigar every once in a while, so I can appreciate that, but would I smoke it in my beautiful car? No, I would not. Apple CarPlay, including Siri, $360. That's a head scratcher too. Window trim in high gloss black, $240. And the last option is the amber side markers. Those are free. Then we add, of course, the destination processing and handling fee for $1,350 for a total price of $94,120. Now, personally, I of course have to say this. That is an almost $95,000 car that doesn't have a sunroof. As we duck into a neighborhood where most of these things will live, a side note about something very pedestrian, and that is the Apple CarPlay. We've seen Porsche adopt Apple CarPlay, basically anything you want as long as it's Apple CarPlay, meaning no Android Auto. And then we saw them move to wireless Apple CarPlay as we got into 992s. Well, that jump occurs here as well, where this can be connected wirelessly as well as wired. I still don't quite understand why they don't take up the entire 16:9 screen with the Apple CarPlay icons. BMW has already figured this out, but for some reason, Mercedes and Porsche are slow on the take on this. That is one big piece of feedback. Maybe Zuffenhausen, you could change that and take up the whole screen so we could have more apps. Yes, I fully admit that the options game, it's our way of poking fun at certain car manufacturers for their extensive and rather expensive laundry list of options. Now, in all seriousness, I can fully appreciate the opportunity to custom build a car any way you want it, so your copy of, in this case, a Porsche, doesn't look or act like anybody else's. Like, you guys know I'm a huge fan of colored seatbelts, and here's an example. I can get red, yellow, green, perhaps even fuchsia. I don't know about future, but you see where I'm going with this. So I take my hat off to the likes of Porsche and Mercedes that give us the opportunity to custom build a car that is unlike anybody else's in the world. However, I've come to realize recently as I go through these option lists that there is a bridge too far in certain cases, and one real pet peeve of mine is proximity key, keyless go, whatever they call it nowadays. This is where you walk up to the car and you've got the key in your pocket and the door, it should open. We just learned this is a $94,000 car and it doesn't have it fitted as standard. Now I get, not everybody wants a sunroof, so as much as I don't like that, I'll pay extra for the sunroof. But this is standard on serial production cars that are inexpensive. Cars that the total price of the vehicle is less than the options on some of these Porsches and Mercedes that we look at. So some feedback, not just to Porsche, but maybe even to Mercedes. How about these keyless go, these proximity key things, make them standard, because that's kind of what a car is nowadays. It's high time you and I went back to our top secret torture chamber that is Portuguese Ben, and I believe this is the first time you and I are doing this with a Macan. So let's handicap it a bit. Stiffest suspension setting, and keep in mind these are the bigger 21-inch wheels. Here we go, get aggressive, get into the valley here, see if I can maintain composure of my innards. Oh, actually that's okay. Let's get to the crest of the hill and see how we do here, and everything is still kind of maintaining a balance, but now let's go back to the softest setting and really go for the finale here with the highest crest in this little part of the road, and oh! Okay, so maybe we got a bit of air there, but really what's going on is two things. There's composure, but I would argue it's doing more to maintain lateral motion, and that in turn is what's maintaining the ride quality. Granted, the biggest benefit there is the center of gravity is lower in this than, say, the Cayenne or other SUVs. So I need to interrupt myself here for a minute based on an email I just received. You see, I have a theory, or at least had a theory, that the 2.9 twin-turbo V6 is lighter than the 3-liter single-turbo V6. And I base this on our empirical evidence. We have driven the 2.9 twin-turbo V6 in the Cayenne in Greece, the Panamera, now this, and to me, all of them feel lighter in the nose. So I reached out to the High Commissioner of the Macan world. No, it's not Achim, he's the High Commissioner of the 911 world. So this High Commissioner tells me I'm dead wrong. The 2.9 twin-turbo V6 is in fact 53.5 pounds more, or 24.3 kilos more, than the 3-liter single-turbo V6. But he says probably what you're feeling is in 2019 we changed the double wishbones in the front of the Macans from steel to aluminum. Granted, I totally respect that this guy, he is the High Commissioner of the Macan world, but I respectfully disagree because maybe it's the packaging. I just feel that in each of these vehicles, there's less weight in the nose, and yeah, these engines have more inline power, which is always a good thing, but they are just more, yes, they're more fun to drive, but I would argue more neutral handling because of the package of the engine, meaning the twin turbos that are in the V and the plumbing goes to the back of the engine as opposed to the side of the engine. Now granted, I'm no scientist, but I'm sticking with that.